You can get it. Marvelous.
Yo, what's good? Welcome back to the channel, y'all. And look, as you guys know, OP07 is going to be releasing within like a month and a half. It comes out June 28th, so we still have a lot of time, but there's really no reason to make a ban list based off of EB01, which comes out, you know, I think May 3rd, and ST13 that comes out later on this week. There's really no reason to make a tier list on that because it's not really too much, you know, too impactful of cards. And also some cards also get buffed with, you know, OP07. So, you know, let's go ahead and make this tier list of OP07. As you guys have been seeing on the channel, I have actually been playing a lot of OP07, and I also been paying attention to a lot of the, you know, tournament results in Japan. And I'm gonna have to keep it a buck with you. It's a huge meta shift. Before it used to be Katakuri, you know, Sokka, and Gecko. And now Gecko's not even a top deck anymore. I mean, it's still a good deck, but it's not really winning like that over there in Japan. So let's go straight to it. First deck we have is ṟ, and I'm going to put this at A. You know, this is pretty much a watered down version of Sakazuki. Being able to lower costs every turn is also still really good. You still have the 8-drop Gecko Moria, but to be real with you, there's other decks that really, you know, outshine this deck. And also, this isn't really that many tournament results with this. I mean, I see maybe 1 or 2 tops with this deck in OCG, but I'm gonna be real with you, these two decks are actually in the same boat. I mean, they're not the best deck anymore. I feel like they took a step down. They're still very good decks. It's just there's other decks right now in the meta that's outshining these two decks. And the fact that Sakazuki's gone as well, I think people are leaning more towards all, you know, some of the newer versions of certain decks that got a buffed or just got released with OP07. Still very good deck with Gecko Moria and ṟ, but you know, just looking at the tournament results in Japan, it's you know, these decks haven't really been forming. I think I've seen like maybe 1 win with this and maybe 1 win with this, and that's it. Okay, next deck we're going to be talking about is actually a fan favorite, and I'm gonna be real with you, this deck is taking the Japanese meta by storm. This is probably one of the best deck, if not the best deck, in OP07 post ban list, gang. It really is. I mean, when you look at the tournament results, all you see is this deck and one other deck that we're going to get into. But man, being able to, you know, ramp your Dom with the purple side, being able to rush with the red side, the ability is also cracked as well. Look, if you're an RP fan, if you've been an RP player for a while, this is your time to, you know, pretty much take advantage of all the people that's been sleeping or talking shit on your deck. Okay, very good deck, probably one of the best, if not the best deck compared to one other deck that's only in S tier. And yeah, man, it's definitely a time to be an RP Law fan. Next deck we have right here is in A. This deck can actually be S, but the main reason why I'm putting it in A is just for the simple fact that Black and Yellow Luffy is really skill intensive. Okay, it's probably the most skill intensive deck in the meta right now. Like, you actually have to know every single line in and out. Okay, there's been a lot of people that's played this deck that said, hey, you know, this deck sucks, and it really does suck because they don't know what they're doing. Okay, they aren't reading the cards, they don't know the lines, and that's the thing about this deck. You actually have to know every single line with this deck, because if you don't, you'll just end up losing. Very high skilling deck. It's at 8th right now just for being base good, but if a skilled player get this deck can be the best deck in the format if you actually have a player that can really maximize on all the, you know, pluses that you can get by putting, you know, your rush down aces into your life, and being able to also cycle out your sabos with protection on the field, and then on top of getting your attack on your leader boost an extra 2 to 4k. So there are going to be some times where you play against this deck and Luffy is just going to have a 9k attack. Just based off rip. So and there's, like I said, this deck is real skill intensive, very good deck, but for most players it's probably going to be sitting in A. I'll probably put it like the top of A right now when it comes to Black and Yellow deck, because the Black and Yellow Luffy does counter the Gecko Moria and also the ṟ as well. It's probably another reason why you aren't really seeing these two decks like that, because in OP07 this really does shine just because of Flampy. Even though it comes out EB01, there's some other cards that come out on OP07, but this deck right here gatekeeps these two decks right here. That's also, like I said, another reason why you aren't really seeing these two decks like that. The next deck we have right here has to be this deck of you know, Zoro Sanji, the deck from OP06. I'll put it in B just for a simple, actually I'll put it in C. because I feel like the main reason why I've been seeing this deck win, like, actually has some tournament winnings, and not just one. It has like 2 or 3 in Japan right now, and I've always wondered why this deck doesn't really seem that strong. It seems like just a, you know, like an anime type deck, but I feel like the main reason why this deck is winning, number one, 10-drop Doflamingo, being able to have that 10-drop Dofi coming down, you know, is really shutting shit down, is number one. And number two is that 9-drop Zoro, being able to have multiple attacks. And I feel like the third reason why this deck is also pretty good is because it's a surprise factor. Not a lot of people know how to play against this deck, man, and I feel like that can really go into your favor going into a big tournament. Okay, like, you could take this to a big tournament. In my opinion, I'd rather possibly pick like the A or a S tier type of decks, but you know, if you're on a budget and like you just like Zoro Sanji, this is actually another good pick as well, as it has been showing tournament winnings. And you know, 10-drop Luffy, or not Luffy, 10-drop Dofi is actually crazy. The next deck we're going to be talking about has to be probably the best. This is probably the best deck in the game, being able to rest your, first off, you guys don't know what deck this is because it's the all art. This is a Green Bonnie and OP07. It comes on OP07 Green Bonnie. It pretty much, what Green Bonnie does is pretty much has a Capone effect, so you could pretty much rest any one of your opponent's you know, monsters on their turn. So it allows you to play on their turn as long as you have 1 Dawn left up. So they'll always have, you know, 1 Dawn on their side, so they can rest. But I'm gonna keep it real with you, just the board control and being able to have the lockdown and skip people's attacks for turns is actually crazy. Being able to play on your opponent's turn is actually crazy. Being able to use like I said, the 9-drop Zoro on top of the 10-drop Dofi, also with the 5-drop you know, what is it, Kid, the blocker as well. Those are all great, fantastic cards to make this deck go round. Hey, look, I don't know, I just started OP06 and everybody always used to tell me green was trash, green was trash, so I'm actually happy that green's actually having its time to shine, and Green Bonnie is probably the best deck. Green Bonnie is the best deck in the game. Right after that is probably Law. So these are the 2 best decks in the game for OP07 once that's released. Next deck we have is Reiju. Reiju kind of fell off last format. I'll probably put her in a little bit in A, right behind like Katakuri, but it's actually fell off a little bit with everything else that's just been added. You don't really see too many people playing this deck in OP07 in the Japanese meta pre and post ban list. Very good card, being able to cycle out your ETG, your 7-drop, and then also later down the line being able to drop that Judge as well. It can really end games quickly. But in my opinion, just moving forward with OP07 going into, you know, the starter deck after that, and OP08, I feel like Reiju has taken a little bit of a backseat. Still a very good deck. And look, this is actually one of those decks that if you're actually brand new to the game, this is probably the best deck to start off with, because it's hella cheap, gang. It really is. It is super cheap to the point where, you know, I don't even know how much this deck costs, but from what I've been hearing, this is the most cheapest competitive deck that you can play. And if you are learning and you do want to get into the game, you know, playing Reiju may not be your flavor, but just learning the mechanics, learning how the game functions and everything with the Dawn and attacking and all that stuff, Reiju is a good pick to start to, you know, really have for your very first deck, man. So that's my opinion on Reiju. Next deck that we have is Vegapunk, and I'm gonna be real with you, Vegapunk is actually trash. I feel like, I mean, there's so many other better yellow decks out there, and the fact that you have 2 life, which means you have certain, when you play against another yellow deck, their triggers are always going off crazy with Kiku. You don't really see too many people topping with Vegapunk, and to be honest with you, if you're gonna play a yellow deck, I mean, you might as well play the starter deck, you know, Luffy at that point. Very cool, you know, deck, but starting off with 2 life is it really steers me away. Okay, really does steer me away. 2 life is way too low. Next deck we have is Blue Yellow Ace. Blue Yellow Ace is definitely, it's decent, but like I said earlier, if you want to play a yellow deck from, you know, the starter deck, there's no point of wasting your money on this and play this. Maybe if this is your favorite anime character or something in Ace, throwing fireballs everywhere, I mean, that's what you like, cool. But to be real with you, if you really try to be in a competitive setting and trying to win, instead of playing this Ace, you might as well take the time to learn this black and yellow Luffy, okay? Don't let me deter you from not saying Ace isn't that good, because Ace isn't that good. I'm gonna keep it a buck to you. It really isn't that good. There's no tournament winnings, there's no regional winnings, there's nobody. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing, no representation from this deck. The only reason why I'm not putting it in D is because it's a yellow deck that don't got 2 life. So Very, very good deck, but in my opinion, if you're gonna play a deck like this, you might as well go for black and yellow Yuffie. Next deck that we have is you know, Vegapunk. Vegapunk is also not Vegapunk, Foxy is also in D tier. You see no representation, and just the whole mechanics of the deck is really not, it's just not in my, you know, it's just not that good. I mean, I played probably like 40 or 50 games against this deck, and I think I only lost one. This deck's really just not that good, man. I mean, to be honest with you, you might as well play another deck as well. There's a couple other decks I am missing from starter deck, not starter deck, from OP07. The only one is Dragon. Dragon is the rush down. I'll put Dragon in C just because it is a rush down. That's the only leader I am missing. So Dragon's not here, but the Dragon, Red Dragon that comes on OP07, I put right here. Since we are talking about OP07, OP07 as well, Boa Hancock. I'm debating and putting it in the bottom of B and top of C. I'll probably put it in the top of C because, like I said, a lot of people don't know what these blue cards do. Blue has never really been good ever, so a lot of people don't even know what blue cards do. But also with the OP07, there was a lot of blue cards added that actually made pre-existing blue decks good. It also has the 10-drop Kaido. It has the 9-drop Mihawk. I mean, Bull just in general. If you like Bull because you're a weeb, okay, and you like that type of shit, I mean, you could use her. But to be honest with you, I'll put her in C. There's really no tournament winnings with Bull at this point, but you know, decent leader. I'll probably put it at the top of C. Top of C because you can run that 10-drop Kaido to recycle all your hand back in, or not recycle, but add 4 cards from the deck to your hand, giving you way of advantage. So very, very good deck, or really card in general. So next deck that we have right here is Katakuri. Look, Katakuri actually fell off the planet right now. It really did fall off the planet. You guys are probably wondering, if you guys look at all the results from, you know, OP07, what happened to Katakuri? What happened to Katakuri is that Reject got banned. Once Reject gets banned, this deck is going to be trash. Like, and that's a fact, not an opinion. The reason why Katakuri is so good, because you could drop that Lin one turn, drop it down to one life, and then next turn you can Reject and go for game with the Lin. So that's another reason why Katakuri is so good right now, because Reject kind of breaks the deck. Once Reject gets, you know, banned, you're gonna see all the Katakuri players fall off the face of the planet. That's the reason why I'm not playing Katakuri. I don't want to play a deck that's only good for a month and a half, and then after, you know, that it just falls. It's just not that good. I mean, if you, like I said earlier, if you do want to play a good yellow deck that's really skill intensive and high skill ceiling that nobody can really stop, it is really this black and yellow Luffy here. Yeah, so let's go to get straight to the next one. Next deck that we have right here has to be my favorite deck of all time. It was up to me. This will be an S tier. It'll have its own tier called God tier, because you already know what it is. It's YGOD, Yellow Ganga Die, YGOD, and that's on the game, man. Shout out to my delinquents, man. You already know how we getting down. But look, if it was up to me, and now we'll be having his own tier called God tier, because he's pretty much the god in the anime, and that's a fact, not an opinion. But me being realistic, it's not an S tier, even though we did get a buff with the Ace, with the Frankie, with the Luffy. I mean, since we did get a buff, I'll probably put it at the back of it could possibly be the best of B. It's probably, like, I'm gonna be real with you, when you really look at tournament results, Enel has not really been showing up. I've only saw one Enel post ban list really showing up, and I don't know what the reason is. Maybe because all the other decks are a little bit better, or it could also be that, you know, these two decks are kind of gatekeeping Enel, and also RP Law might be gatekeeping Enel a little bit, because Rushdown, what I've noticed playing against with Enel, RP Law, not just necessarily RP Law, but anything that's red or black, Enel has a really hard time with board removal and just getting that rush down, especially since our whole gist of our deck is really just to be able to get our life low. And the fact that RP Law has mad rushers, and, you know, all the black decks have mad board removal, it's very hard to get this deck going against them. And as you guys can see, all three of those decks are, you know, really prevalent in the meta right now, especially RP Law. It's the most popular deck, and I think that's the reason why Enel's a little bit further back. I'll probably put him at the back of A, possibly at the top of B at this point, because it's really, Enel's really been struggling with this new format with OP07. Next deck we have right here is Whitebeard. We're just gonna put that in D. I have no reason why people are still playing this deck. You literally just draw your whole entire life, and hopefully you just win and, you know, rush them down. In my opinion, if you do want to play a red deck, just play RP Law. Just play RP Law at that point. But yeah, not too much about Whitebeard. And the last deck that I really do hate the most, I'll probably put this right here, Nami. I'm not a fan of Nami. It's probably the most boring deck I've ever played. Like, it feels like you're playing a you know, like a RPG game. It feels like you're playing just with yourself. I mean, this is like a popcorn in a movie type of deck. Like, there is no interaction with your opponent. You just sit there and try to mill out your deck. Very, very boring deck. If you're a new player, stay away from this deck. Very boring deck. Sitting there waiting to draw your whole entire deck to win. It's probably the most cringe thing I've ever seen. People that play Nami, I don't know what you're doing. You need to go wash your face off of all the dirt on your face, because when I see a Nami play, I know people say, oh, you're playing yellow, but yellow, at least there's some interaction. With Nami, I'm sitting there and it's like they're trolling me the whole game. It's really just yanking my chain, you know, pulling my chain. That's what it really feels like playing against a Nami. But that's also not going to you know, sway me not to realize that Nami is still a decent deck. If you are a Nami player, the deck is still pretty good, still very viable. I haven't seen any of them top, but it did get buffed in OP07, and that's the only reason why I'm putting this probably the back of B. It's not in front of category. I'll probably say the back of B or the top of C, but I'll put it in B because we do have the Nami crybabies in the chat and all over the YouTube streets. So that's the reason why I'm putting this here. And the other decks are not even real because these two decks aren't even in the game yet. If your deck is not on here, I'm sorry, but it's just not been topping. It hasn't been topping, and that's just me keeping it a buck. If your deck is not on here, I am just completely sorry, but you just need to, you know, probably put it down, pick up something else if you're really trying to go to a real tournament setting. Oh yeah, Yamato. So the last deck that I actually ended up forgetting is Yamato's, because Yamato has been performing out here in the States in OP06, and let's go ahead and rank this here real quick. And honestly, Yamato is now in C. I'm gonna be real with you, there's literally been 0 tops with Yamato. It's almost to the point where, you know, it should be at the back of this because Zoro and Sanji actually has more tops than Yamato. Yamato, a good leader, but I'm gonna keep it real with you, there's no tournament winnings with this. There's no tournament showings with Yamato. It pretty much fell off the planet after Reject got banned, just like Katakuri. But yeah, man, that's all I got. Like I said earlier, if your deck has not been on this list, I'm sorry, but it just hasn't been topping, man. I'm not gonna put fan favorite decks on here just because the art looks good or it's, you know, it's your favorite deck. This is a competitive tier list, and competitively wise, if it's not on this list, more than likely it's not topping at all in Japan from how it currently stands at the moment. Look, that's all I got. But before you go, if you was feeling the vibes, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm gone.